Hey everyone, welcome back to Rally Caps. It's a podcast for artists, entrepreneurs, and everybody in between. I'm Steven.
I'm Gene.
I'm Braxton.
And we, as you just heard, we have Braxton back on the show today.
Nice.
Any listeners of the show, at any point during this year, I think maybe it was like 10 episodes back, Braxton, you joined us for an episode about kind of vintage digital cameras, which is very fun. For any new listeners, Braxton is a member of our studio, Creative Club of Chicago, one of the owners there. Very dear friend of ours, and we're very happy to have him back on the show today.
Happy to be
as
here.
a little guest correspondent. It's going to be really fun. Also really timely, too, because this episode is going to be focused a lot around starting young in the creative industry. Again, for listeners of the show, last week's episode, Eric and I did a bit of a Q&A grab bag episode, but a lot of the questions kind of revolved around this idea of when's the appropriate time to take your side hustle full-time. If you're juggling a full-time job as well as building something on the side, at what point do you decide, I'm just going to take the plunge and really commit to this full-time side hustle of mine? We're going to almost wind the clock back a little bit more for this episode and really talk for, I'd say, like, address young creators, like anyone in maybe like late high school stage, early college age, around that period of time. If you got started really young, like Braxton here did, at what point do you decide, I'm going to commit to this? At what point do you decide, am I going to go to college or not? All the questions that kind of surround being a very young artist and kind of finding your stride earlier on. I just wanted to piggyback off of that idea of kind of taking your side hustle full time from last week's episode. So we're doing that again this week for any of you younger artists who might resonate with that. So later in the episode, we'll also kind of dive into maybe present day, current state of the creative industry at large, and maybe touch on some of the long-term plans that each of us have and our perspectives as not like total veterans in the industry, but we've been in it for 10 plus years apiece. So it's been a long time, and we've definitely had some perspectives change over the years. So let's start young. Brax, when did you get started as a photographer, filmmaker?
Yeah, so my creative journey actually started a good bit before I actually got into photo and video. I, weirdly enough, had like very creative parents, but like creativity was never like really like forced in the household. It was never, it was actually like disencouraged to a way.
Really?
My
Okay.
dad was a Broadway actor. He did a lot of like the traveling shows or whatever. He acted in like in the DC theater, Broadway, the Globe, like all those kinds of things. And that's what he did. My mom was this incredible painter. Like to this day, like the most incredible person I ever know. Actually, fun fact, when we were young, we didn't have a lot of money. So my mom, like, she would go down to like the really nice like boutique or whatever, and she would find a painting that she would really like, and she'd bring it home, and she'd go buy the canvas and recreate it herself and go take it back. Very, very talented. So I really got my start. It all started in acting because my dad was an actor. I never did anything extremely serious with it, but from the ages of 6, 7 years old all the way up until I would say 13 or so, like acting was something that was really important to me and something that I wanted to pursue. And then that kind of led into other things. And I kind of hopped around a lot. I tried a lot of the stuff. I did fashion for a while. I did this, I did that, or whatever. It wasn't until I was about 15, I would say about 15 years old, is that when I really got into photo specifically. And that was through, so like after acting, I really got into fashion. And through fashion, I got into skateboarding. Skateboarding then led to photo. So it was kind of like a, step after step situation. But yeah, I started doing photo, but photo was more just like a thing that like was for skateboarding and for fashion and that sort of stuff. It was never something that like I wanted to pursue. It was just something that was kind of handy that I knew what to do. And then, one thing led to another, and it's a very typical story from there. People figure out how to work a camera, and they're like, oh, can you take our picture here? Can you take my senior portraits? Can you do this? Can you do that? We've all been there. We've all done that. And so that's kind of where it led to. And it wasn't until my kind of junior, senior year of high school that I was starting to make some money with it and, was trying to, figure out what I really wanted to do. And I was really contemplating whether or not I should go to college. Throughout all of this, I was also a very athletic person. Sports were also a huge part of my life growing up. And even though I played other sports in tandem, tennis was a huge part of my life. And I had every ability to go to college to play tennis. And I, was getting recruited and all that stuff. And so like I was dealing with that, and I was like, but like I want to do this photo thing, and like I'm not really sure if I needed to go to college, and like it was a mess for a long time. But yeah, ended up going to college for 2 years, played tennis for 2 years on scholarship, but still did photo and video. At that point, I had also started doing video as well, and kind of did all of those together at once. But yeah, so I think honestly, we're just going to go ahead and start this off. My first hot take of this podcast.
Oh, let's go.
Is that I think people in authority and people who are in a position to teach, I think they need to take more objective stances. I think too many people in a position to teach the younger people don't take objective stances enough, and they give very vague and very like the time old answer to if you should go to college or not is, well, you know, it's kind of whatever works for you. You know, like I can tell you what worked for me, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you what worked for you. That's not helpful. It's just not. You know, if that was helpful, people wouldn't be asking the question. If they knew what was best for them, they wouldn't be asking you if they should go to college or not, you know? And I was just desperate for someone to give me an objective answer on whether or not I should go to college.
Okay.
And
did you get that answer?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And we actually talked about this the other day.
Yeah.
I came across a video. So I was a very big Gary Vee fanboy growing up. Huge Gary Vee fanboy. And I'm not apologetic for it at all. Like those were very formidable years of my life. And I'm glad that I watched someone like Gary and not someone who, you know, ended up being some scam person. There was plenty of those during that time. But someone had asked him that same question, and it kind of seemed like Gary was kind of tired, and it definitely seemed like he was on hour 19 of working that day, like he normally is or whatever. And he just he kind of looked at them for a minute, and he goes, if you can go to college and not take on massive amounts of debt, if you can go to college for free or relatively for free, go. You have so much time in your life to actually do the thing that you want to do. College will not, and I promise you, college will not set you back. Now, if you have to take out a massive amount of debt to go to college, then don't. You're better off going ahead and starting a business, go pursuing this job, doing this, doing that. And that was the answer I needed. And I was like, okay, well, I have this tennis scholarship. I have this ability to go to college for relatively free. I should just go.
And so you heard Gary say that before you decided to go to
yes,
college? Yes,
I heard that sometime during my kind of like probably beginning of senior year of high school. And that's when I really started getting recruited for tennis.
Yep.
And that was like the answer I needed. And I was like, oh, finally someone just like took an objective stance, because I think, and we can talk about this later, but we have a big problem, and this is across a lot of industries, but I think particular in the creative industry, I don't know how to say this politely, but we have like a mental masturbation problem. Like we truly do. We really do.
That's a hot take.
That is a hot take.
Like we sit there and we just like think about like all of these things, and we think and we watch these videos and we listen to these podcasts and we read these books and we do this and we do that, and we never do the thing.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
You're glorifying the ideas. And
yes,
not the
we're
action.
glorifying the ideas and the process, and we just like go down like these mental rabbit holes, and you never take action. And I feel like if you're ever in a position in your life and you don't know exactly what you want or need to do, like my example, or for example, me not figuring out if I need to go to college or not, just pick one and go with it. And I promise you, that will get you to your end goal so much faster than sitting there and thinking about it forever, and sitting there and just like going through all of your options. Cause then you're just like in this like choice paralysis of like, I don't know what to do and I don't know what's best. Like just pick something and go with it. And I promise you, you will get to where you want to be so much faster.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Decision fatigue is a very real thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I love all of that. I'm going to put a quick pin in all of that. And actually real quick for context too, just so listeners know, how old are you right now?
I am 23 years old.
And you're going on 24 in September?
I'll be 24 in September.
Excellent. Just so viewers listeners have an idea of like where you are coming from, speaking from, and all that. Quick pin, Gene, was your experience in high school and with art similar, slightly similar, completely opposite of Braxton's? Insofar as your decision, how it informed college, what your parents thought of it, all that.
Yeah, I'll be as concise as possible. Definitely a different experience in Braxton. Probably there's multiple layers to it too, like culturally speaking too, at least like as an Asian person pursuing creativity and then business ownership was a pretty uncommon thing, not just from like the Asian community, but specifically my Asian community.
Yeah.
Like no, it was expected to go to college, to try to get the highest scores. We were talking about this, like ACT, SAT, try to get to the best schools, try to get the most scholarships. Like that was the expectation for my cohort of friends.
Okay.
So that's kind of like, for me, it was never an option of not going to college. The way that I was raised, the way I was informed, it was like, that was the next step towards life after graduating. At the time too, I had no ambitions to be a photographer or an artist or a creative. So even in high school too, like, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, which I don't think a lot of 18-year-olds do. I mean, I didn't.
Rock star, but
Yeah, you figured out.
that was
I
my
did
ambition
it.
at
Yeah.
18.
But I was dabbling in photography and video stuff for church all throughout high school, but I never thought it would turn to a job someday. So for me to go to college was good in that I didn't know what I wanted to do. And there are a lot of different tools I picked up along the way, but it was through those connections where eventually, a few years later after graduating, when I got into weddings, I had those connections and network to rely on to then go ahead and start growing a business. Some people have it in them. Like Braxton, I really believe has it in him. Like some people are just built in a way where they're very self-driven and ambitious and creative and talented and can bet on themselves. That was not who I was though at 18, 19, 20 years old. So for me, like college was good for me. Not the debt that was incurred from going to college. And I agree with Gary Vee's sentiment too. But like my journey has been a very unique one in that for the first few years, no one really understood why I was stepping away from the degree that I studied and paid for.
Which was?
Food science. The industry I stayed in for a few years after that. And no one understood, they're like, photography? Can you make money from that? And I was like, I don't know, but I want to try. I don't know.
Find out.
Yeah, and it was. I think there was a chip on my shoulder too for the first few years. Like my friends and my family did not understand, and this is like no shot at them. I get it. I get why no one else in my circle is doing this. So there's definitely a motivation in me to not prove them wrong necessarily, but make sure that I would find success, however you want to define it. In doing the thing that I bet on myself to do. But this was later in life. This was post-college for me. So in that regard, to answer your question, my journey was a little different from Braxton's.
Yeah, it sounds like it. There was no inclination at any point when you were dabbling in photo, video at church.
I never thought it'd be a job.
Never thought it'd be a job.
I never, like in college too, I was the guy with like a camera all the time at all these events.
Okay.
I never thought, because that was not the mental framework I was working within. My whole thing was like, I need to graduate with the highest GPA, try to do an internship, and try to get a well-paying job. Like that's where my mind was at. So as a junior and senior, my head was not in the space of, I wonder if I can turn this camera into a profit. Yeah. It's just like, at least for me, it just was not where I was. It's not what I was thinking.
So for you, that realization was post-college, around like 22, 23, maybe around that time. Then Brax, what age would you say you were at when photo video was like, okay, this is going to be at least like a thing that I want to be doing consistently as a side hustle?
So that probably started somewhere around my junior year of high school. Was like, I'll at least have some form of camera with me, and we'll do some form of this throughout my life. Senior year started getting more and more work, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's something here. And then by the time I went into my freshman year of college, I remember having the difficult conversation with my mom in the parking lot. I had just gone through my first kind of like, they would do these like athlete visits where they would come and they would tour the campus and they would try to sell the college to you. And I had the conversation with my mom in the parking lot of Jones College, the college I ended up going to, and was, Mom, like, I really think I want to pursue this photo thing. And at that point, like, my mom had turned gray at that point by trying to raise me, and she was just like, fine. Do what you're going to do. I'll be here to support you as best I can. And so like at that point, I'd made the decision that like, I'm going to try to make this work. And then sophomore year, so my second year, because I went to junior college, that's when it really got real. And I was like, okay, like I really have to figure this out. And that's when Chicago kind of entered the picture. Okay.
So to kind of relate it back to last week's episode, then the idea of, taking side hustle full-time idea, we're just talking about everything at a much earlier phase of life. For you, almost to kind of paint it this way, your full-time job, so to speak, was being a student. being
Yeah.
in college, and then your side hustle that you were building up was photo video
Yes.
at that point in time.
Yes.
Because it was a pretty time consuming college life because of your tennis in particular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, it was also kind of a full-time job in a sense. Photo was, because I had also became financially independent of my parents by the time I was 17.
Okay.
I would say. So like high school going into college, I was financially independent of my parents. And like, my grandmother would give me gas money here and there because they're grandmothers, but like I paid all of my bills and stuff through photos. So like I was doing that full time as well, like throughout college as well.
Dang.
So that was just like a very like pivotal moment, because like I was just like kind of always in this position, and this was very self-imposed. I do not want to like sit here and be like, oh, my family didn't want to help me or anything. It was very much like a self-imposed, like I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
And when you put yourself in, and we're going to talk about this in a second for sure, but like when you put yourself in those positions of like, no, I have to make this work, you make it work.
And that's why you're wearing a suit for this episode now.
Yes.
You've just seen
Oh,
Raging
that's true.
Success. With an attitude like that, man, you
yeah.
can't fail.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so then the question does become, you're young, you're independent in this case.
Yeah.
At what point do you make that decision? At what point does the full-time work and does all of your energy and all of your livelihood and all of your creativity get poured into that one thing that you consolidate down into? For
Well-
you, Gene, it was around 25 because you juggled food science and photo video for a little while.
Yeah, I think I shot my first wedding where I got paid as a second shooter in 2014.
Okay.
So I was 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And when did you make the flip? How long did you do both?
I did it for until the end of 2016.
Okay.
And that's when I moved here
Yep.
and then went full-time photography.
So 2 years balancing two jobs essentially,
Yep.
and then full time into photo. Okay, cool. And then Brax, how about you?
And I was doing relatively the same thing, just like with college instead
Yep.
of like a normal job.
Yep.
But yeah, I was probably 19-ish, 18 to 19 was when like I was like really like, no, like going to make this work no matter what. I was a student. I graduated May of 21. So after that, like I was literally on my own. And again, that's when Chicago entered the picture.
Yep. Okay, cool. Just kind of getting all that as like good context
Yes.
for listeners, for anyone who's maybe unfamiliar with our stories or haven't heard that in previous episodes. I feel like we've touched on it a
Here and
little
there,
bit
yeah.
in the past,
Yeah.
but haven't done it as concisely.
Sure.
Just for context for myself. Also, my story is, I'd say, pretty similar to yours, Gene. Same exact trajectory of like college was assumed. Wasn't really a thing that I could skirt around. And
Yeah.
believe me, I tried. I meant it when I said rock star earlier. I really wanted to be, I
Yeah,
wanted
music.
my band to be like
Yeah.
on tour, doing our thing, have albums. Like that was what I thought life was
Yeah.
going to be. And I'm very, very grateful that my parents corralled me in a little bit and was like, I think college could be a good thing for you.
This could be good for you.
This could be
Yeah.
good for you. Yeah. No, I'm extremely grateful. And to kind of rope Gary Vee back in a little bit too, I grew up with the wild privilege of not having to worry about the expense of college. And my parents just always prioritized making sure that I'd be able to do that without the debt associated with it. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. And also, I do feel like I got a lot out of my college experience. Like the friendships were incredible, the connections were amazing, and I think it really set me up for success in my work as a photographer and the myriad of things that I do
Yeah.
now. Because I got to work as a student photographer at my college for 3 years, and I got to make friends that would ultimately get married post-college, and I got to shoot their wedding. And it felt like this really interesting meta situation where all of those relationships
Yeah.
that I'd been building up for so long ended up actually becoming professional relationships as well
Yeah.
in a weird way. So very grateful for that, but just to kind of paint that picture so everyone kind of gets where all three of us are coming from here. Okay, cool. So to kind of circle back to the pin that I put in
Yeah.
earlier, you were talking about decision fatigue a little bit and this idea of like almost worshiping the ideas and like the cool methodologies and the strategies that you could employ
Yep.
to create a business without actually taking the action to do those things.
Yeah.
What kind of action do you think it takes when you are juggling those two things to make the one thing work, to cut the cord on the other half that you were sustaining yourself on? And that's for either of you.
Yeah, I mean, like I think you just like it's literally as simple as you just have to start doing the thing. You know, I wanted to be a professional photographer. So what did I do? I started trying to shoot photos professionally as much as possible. And my definition of that at the time was I need to be taking photos in exchange for money. And then, you know, So that's your goal, is to take photos for money, and then you do whatever it takes to put yourself in that position so that you can do that as much as possible. So then, you start doing stuff like networking with other people, trying to get referrals, trying to learn as much as possible, but also while making sure that you're never sacrificing actually doing the thing. I think that's where a lot of people kind of like fall off track, is that they get so caught up in either the networking or the learning or whatever, and they're like watching YouTube videos all the time and watching podcasts and doing this and doing that. And next thing you know, it's been 3 months since the last time they've done any sort of paid shoot. So for me, it was just like I was trying to take photos as much as humanly possible.
Yep.
And you couple that with the fact that like that was my only really source of income and money. You're already kind of in a position where you got to make that happen.
Yep.
But yeah, you really just like have to do the thing.
Yep.
I mean, Gene, you can speak about that too.
My answer probably would change or vary dependent on where that person's at in their career, at least my experience thus far. But specifically someone who's juggling those two things, whether it's school and side hustle or full-time job and side hustle. No, I completely agree. I think the biggest thing that I would tell someone in that position is you have to go and practice and do the thing that you want to do, because you need to show the work that you want to be paid for. And then you also need to keep getting better at that skill set, not only to build a portfolio, but to build the confidence too. It's a thing that like,
sure.
I'm so thankful that I second shot so many weddings early on.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of technical skills. I also learned a lot of people skills. Whatever version that you guys know me as today, I was not this way 10 years ago. I was super introverted. I don't think I was awkward, but I was very shy. Like I was not a troll. So a different person. Yeah, a different person. But getting those reps in was super helpful for me, at least in building my confidence. And it took a long time for me, at least. But I think fundamentally, I agree with Braxton too. You have to put the work in and do it. And you have to understand, like, some people have the privilege or the circumstances where it allows them to be a little more flexible or loose with how hard they're going, and other people, it's like, this is it. I've got to push. And I think dependent on your situation, I think most people still have the opportunity to carve out 1 hour of their day or watch one less TV show, wake up 30 minutes earlier to push. And so, I don't know, like that's the one thing you can control. You can't control results. You can definitely control the work you put in though.
Yeah, absolutely. To kind of address you specifically here, Braxton, what is your perspective on age in this matter? Because we are kind of talking about, you know, demographic here. Ideally, high school students may be listening to this, or early college students listening to this right now, considering these things. Do you think age and your youth in this specific circumstance is a detriment to getting these professional jobs, or a benefit?
That actually, weirdly enough, was something that I dealt with heavily going into this industry. And it's when people find out your age, people very quickly, and some people are just straight up jerks, and other people kind of just like do it subconsciously, but it's you get sunned very quickly. Like you get little boyed very quickly. And it's something that like I dealt with for a long time, and thankfully I didn't have it as bad as other people, because the thing that I'll tell you, that the things that I'm most grateful for in my life and the things that I will accredit most to my success is two things. One, I was heavily blessed growing up with two different things. One being a good picture of what hard work looked like. I had incredible parents who worked extremely hard, and still to this day do. They're my dream. I want to be able to work as hard as they do. The other thing is that I have, and this is just me being transparent, I have completely unbridled confidence. I just do.
Well, yeah, you wore a suit to a podcast.
Yes. I am just teeming with confidence. I've kind of always been like that. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I get self-conscious sometimes too, or whatever. But if Warner Brothers calls me right now and is like, we need a script and production done in 12 months, I'm there, it's done, and it's the greatest thing you've ever watched. And the crazy thing is that like, I wholeheartedly, truly believe that. Like, polygraph me right now. I believe it. Okay.
I love those videos, by the way.
Yes.
Oh, he's lying.
We should do one of those.
Yes.
Get all four of us on polygraph.
Gosh.
So that confidence factor helped me so much.
For sure.
Coming into this space, is because what I was able to do was that I was able to kind of skirt around the age thing because of the way I acted and the way I carried myself and the way I spoke to people.
Yeah.
People just assumed I was older than what I was.
Okay.
Once I learned that like, oh, people are kind of, holding me back a little bit because of my age for whatever reason, I was like, okay, I need to carry myself this way so that, they're, by the end, I can't tell you now how many shoots I have gone through where like at the end of the shoot, they were like, you're 21. We thought you were like 27, 28, and I think, again, it's not always people just being straight up mean or jerks or whatever. It's kind of a subconscious thing. You're like, oh, you're still a kid.
Right.
But little did they know that like been doing this for longer than they have. I just started a lot earlier than they have. But that confidence thing in particular is what has kind of allowed me to circumnavigate. So like if you are dealing with age issues, you got to build your confidence up. You got to be able, like I'm the biggest proponent of faking it until you make it. But the problem with faking it till you make it is that a lot of people can't back it up when they fake it. You've got to be able to back it up. And the only way you can do that is confidence in yourself. And you build that through the reps and, putting in the work like Gene said. And I was always putting myself in a positions that I knew that I could come through given the opportunity. And at that point, age didn't matter. I'm a huge person about controlling the things you can control. And you can't control how other people are going to react to you. You can't control what people are going to do to you. What you can control is your effort. And my biggest thing, and I tell this to all the people that like I've mentored and talked to and all that stuff, is that like put yourself in a position where they have no decision but to say yes.
Yeah.
They're you have to put yourself in a position so that when they see you, like they would feel dumb if they told you no or tried to sun you or tried to, hold you back for whatever reason.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So yeah, confidence was a huge thing, but it's definitely a problem and definitely something that I would encourage people to not kind of get too hung up on. It's natural. It's going to happen. So instead of worrying about it happening, like figure out how you're going to get past it.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's excellent advice.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely one of the hardest obstacles starting out is the age difference more often than not.
And it's hard to like, especially at that age, to build confidence too.
Oh yeah. I mean,
for sure.
It's 16. Are you kidding me?
It's super hard. I mean, like so
my
many things are going
gosh.
on with your body and just like all that stuff.
Like what?
Okay.
Hey, Gene, how old are you?
Wait.
Have you not done the change yet?
I'm going through second puberty right now, guys. I'm like, who am I?
Wow, I've never heard of that one.
Gene's voice just like cracks intermittently at the studio.
You're gonna come back in the studio next year talking like Sam Elkins.
I'm gonna go
Drops another full octave.
Grow another 2 feet.
yeah, for real.
Oh, that's how it happens. Oh, very cool. Okay. So, a big topic I think we've been a huge proponent for on Rally Caps is the idea of working for free. And I feel like we should just have like a quick aside on that right now because I already know what both of you will say to this. So I'm positioning it as a question, even though I'm fully aware of how we all feel about it. But starting out young, again, building that portfolio, I assume you would both advocate for getting jobs that are free just to build a portfolio because the truth is, I'm sure a lot of people around that age, even college age too, no one really has money to spend on something like that. So you need to find the people that at least are willing to just work with you, even just on a trade basis. Yeah. Is that how you guys each, like Gene earlier on, kind of getting out of college or even in college too, just like favors for friends, stuff like that?
I mean, I do it now too. Like, as I transition out of weddings and into another niche, it's very much doing trade work and understanding that I'm not making money now from certain jobs, but it's like what you were saying earlier. I'm betting on myself too, knowing that if I build the work, if I get the reps in, I will get the jobs I want to get eventually. And so it's like, I've seen that time and time again, but I do think there's this like weird negative connotation with, oh, if you should charge what you're worth. I'm like, yeah, but sometimes if you don't have the work to show, you need to build out the work so that you can charge what you believe to be valued at.
Yeah, worth is a very subjective
It's
thing.
super subjective. So like that's the thing. Like I'm all for advocating for yourself, but it's very subjective to what worth means. So yes, I think doing trade work is
Yeah.
highly valuable.
High school, college age, especially.
For
I feel like that's
sure.
the best
For
time to
sure.
do it, honestly.
Especially like linking back to that age thing when people won't let you into the door. Like
Yeah.
you're going to have to go out
Yeah.
and make that work on your own.
You bust that door down.
Yes, like literally not giving them the option. Like
Yeah.
I'm here and you're going to have to accept me because I'm too good at what I do.
Yeah.
Like that's the mindset you got to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean like also a huge proponent of working for free. I mean like that's
Yeah.
literally how I got here to begin with.
Yeah. Same.
I believe I was referenced in a previous episode with Sam Elkins where we talked about
yes. Yeah.
going into my sophomore year of college, I had a very like truly, like I'm not being dramatic when I say this, like life-changing phone call with him. It was COVID had just hit. Everyone was trying to, like all the creative people were obviously like being transparent here. We're scrambling, trying to figure out how they were going to make money. So many people like put out, mentor sessions, $200 an hour. So many people did it, but I didn't expect someone of like Sam's caliber to do it.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I saw it, I was like, sign me up. And I was the first person to sign up. And I was the first phone call he had. And we ended up like, it was for an hour, but we ended up talking for like a couple hours and we just talked about everything. Like we kind of talked to the things I wanted to talk to, but it was just like so life-changing because like it humanized Sam for me because Sam was someone that like I idolized for a really, really long time. Like he was someone that like I really wanted to model my career after for a really long time. And so to hear him say the things that he said was just like life-changing. And one of the things that he told me, I was like, because I had gotten like a commercial job or two, but I was mostly just shooting weddings and stuff at the time. And I was like, how do I get into this space that you're in? And he was like, you got to make the work that you want to be hired for. And I don't know why I'd never thought about it like that. But when he said that, it just like clicked. And I was like, oh, like I need to go out there and I just need to start shooting this stuff. And literally a few weeks later after that phone call, called in a favor to a friend, him and his girlfriend, and he had a Jeep. And I was like, let's put together this spec ad. We went and shot some photos of him, his Jeep, all that stuff, like up in the mountains and or the hills of Alabama, I would say. And Jeep ended up using the photos. I took the photos,
sick. Wow.
emailed them to him. I ended up emailing like everyone on their LinkedIn list.
Nice.
Like at least 30 different executives at Jeep got emails, marketing assistants, all the things. Everyone got emails from me saying, hey, I took these photos, please use them. I don't care what, I don't want you to pay me. Like, I just want you to use them, whatever. Yeah. I think they might've got used at one dealership or something. I don't really know. Yeah. But like that, like changed my entire perspective on it. And a saying that I really hate truly is don't hate the player, hate the game, because that insinuates that you're assigning blame to the game when the first rule of business, creative business, traditional business, it doesn't matter, is you're going to have to learn to accept that everything's your fault. That's the number one rule. If something's not going the way you want it to, it's because you're doing something or not doing something that's keeping you where you are. So if you sit there and you assign blame to the game of like, well, because like I know some people are going to hear that and be like, oh, that's so stupid. I shouldn't have to go out there and spend my own money to put the spec ad together and then sit there and like stalk 30 different LinkedIn executives to like email them and beg them to use my photos. Like, that's just like dumb. Like, I don't want to do that. And so, yeah, you can sit there and you can assign blame to the game and be like, oh, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that. Or you can just get the results that you want, you know, like taking agency and understanding that you have self-agency and that, you know, you can get the stuff that you want. It might be more annoying than what you think it should be. But are you going to sit there and be mad about it, or are you going to do the thing to get the thing that you want?
Yep.
You know,
I don't think there's any better time to do that than when you're young.
Yes.
Also, I think we've talked about this actually with Cyrus quite a bit in the studio as well, and the amount of time and flexibility that you have when you are young and your overhead is very little and your obligations to other people.
Yeah, you're not
very
responsible
little.
for other people.
Maybe you know no partner in life yet, no spouse. Not engaged, your rent is super low because you're just living with a bunch of other people. Yeah. You can get your cost of living so far down that you then maybe have a little bit of headroom to invest in a shoot like that. And also, no one's depending on you. So why not just take a bit of a risk at that point in your life rather than 10 years down the road? Because odds are your life is going to look drastically different 10 years later, and you won't have those same opportunities then as you do right now.
Yep. Wow.
Dang. Bars.
I like that. Bars.
I know I said that, but like kind of
bars.
bars.
Yeah, dang.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Kind of good at this podcasting thing.
Okay. We've talked a lot about age and the work so far. Brax, specifically to you here, what did those first years look like as you know, first 2 years of school, done, no, like, you know, classic 4-year degree, 2 years and done, pursuing photo video full-time, moving to Chicago. What were some of the lessons that you learned in that? And as a follow-up, would you recommend that strategy of moving to a larger city to other people in that range of, like, you know, 18 to 21 years old, college age, in order to pursue more opportunity for their creative career?
Yeah, well, I can go ahead and say right now, I was...
Wow.
Train. That's a very loud train.
That's a really loud one, actually.
Wow.
Whoa. Did you hear that, Gene? Mm-hmm. Dang. Okay,
Wow.
perfect. Awesome.
Anyway, I can tell you right now, I was very poor for a while.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
I was very poor.
Real talk. I love that.
Yes, very real talk. But kind of really quickly circling back to what I just said about understanding that you have self-agency and understanding that everything, because the reason why I say everything's your fault, it's not necessarily that everything actually is your fault, but kind of also what we said is that you can't control the things you can't control. So control the things you can control and put yourself in a position where there's no other option but the thing that you want. So I, for a long time, was very mad at where I grew up in the place I lived in.
Okay.
I grew up in South Mississippi, in the dirty South. I grew up in a very small town, people. But the crazy thing is that I grew up in the stereotypical town where people never went on to do anything, you know. But at the same time, people did. I went to the same high school as the founder of MTV, and the current CEO of iHeartRadio, and a few other examples like that. But I clung to those people growing up, and I was like, well, if they made it, so can I. And so I learned that I had to stop assigning blame to Mississippi, because obviously the market is terrible there. There's no way you can make a full-time living photo video.
Yeah.
If you are, you're eating ramen every night for dinner. Just being truthful. So I had to learn that it's not Mississippi's fault. It's my fault. It's my fault because I'm choosing to stay here right now. If I really want to make this dream work, I'm going to have to leave.
Yep.
That's around the time that I got connected with Eric.
Yep.
And Eric.
And this was 2019?
First time I got connected with Eric was 2019.
Okay.
Going into 2020.
Yep. Just establishing a timeline for listeners.
Eric started doing the lockdown lives.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Especially when lockdown first hit, in March of 20, I would say.
20,
yeah, it was March of 20.
Yep.
He started doing the lockdown lives, and we had kind of interacted in the DMs before. But he was letting people kind of hop on these lives and kind of just chat and talk about life, whatever. And I got on one of those. I remember sitting in my home office, which was really just my attic. It was my closet. Sorry. It was my closet of my childhood home. And we talked, and he kind of I kind of explained my situation of look, I know what I'm doing. I know I'm at least halfway good at this photo video thing. The problem is that there's no money to be made down here, and I can't make a living. And he kind of just halfway jokingly was just move to Chicago. We'll take care of you. It'll be okay. And that was kind of before Eric was had any, he definitely had some online traction, but
Sure.
he wasn't the figure that he is now. So at that time, he kind of probably felt more comfortable saying things like that of oh, just come to Chicago, we'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And as soon as lockdown cleared, I came and visited immediately. I sent him a message look, I'm coming to visit. I got a job in Seattle. I'll just hop on a flight, come to Chicago, come visit for a few days before I head back home.
Yep.
Met everyone. I met actually everyone but Gene, because Gene was much more shy back then, and Gene stayed at his desk.
That's actually hilarious.
I think Gene very quickly in passing was hi, and then went to his desk. I don't think you really talked to anyone that much back then. You were much more to yourself.
Yeah, that was less reflective of my personality, more indicative of, I think, just where things were at in
Sure.
general.
Yeah.
An era.
Yeah.
It was an era.
Yeah.
But
and I said nothing because I was in Massachusetts still.
Yes. Stephen wasn't even here yet, which is crazy. But yeah, I came and visited, kind of met everyone at the studio at the time, and was just all right, sick. We'll make it work.
Yeah.
And, so I went back to Mississippi, continued doing photo video, whatever, and finished out my sophomore year of college.
Yeah.
I graduated in May of 21, and then that June I moved.
Yep.
At that point, I had probably about $2,700 saved up.
Mm-hmm.
I paid for a U-Haul to take my stuff up here. I paid my security deposit and my first month's rent, and any other miscellaneous expenses here and there. And the night that I got everything into my apartment, my dad helped me move. I remember my dad went back to his hotel room. I was sitting in my apartment. All my boxes and all that stuff is sitting in my bedroom. I remember walking into the kitchen and opening up my banking app and I had I believe it was $102 to my name. And I just remember sitting there in my very nasty shoebox apartment in Chicago and being like, okay, like I have to make this work, you know, like that was just like it's a do or die moment, you know, because like, for my detriment or for my benefit, I at the time could not swallow my ego and be like, well, if it doesn't work out, I can move back home. And my mom made sure that I always knew that. My mom was always very good at being like, well, you know, in her Southern accent, well, sweetheart, like if it doesn't work, like you can come back home, like it's okay, like we'll figure it out from there. And I was like, no, like I have to figure this out. And that's actually why, for those watching, I have this tattoo of a pirate ship on fire on my arm. It's in reference to a thing called burning the ships. Back in the pirate days, when pirates go to invade an island or, you know, do whatever pirates are doing, sometimes the crew would chicken out and try to hop back on the ship and dip. So what captains would do is that once they docked in the harbor, they would order the ship to be burned because there was no turning back at that point. Like you got to do the thing. And so, yeah, I came here. At that point, I had also kind of connected with Eric, and Eric kind of floated the idea of me editing for him. Didn't really know what was going to come of that. All I knew was that I had one job, and it was second shooting for Bean. Another fellow co-owner.
Wow.
He had texted me asking if I moved in yet. I moved in on a Tuesday. He was like, have you moved in yet? And I was like, just did, literally just now. And he goes, great, you're second shooting for me on Saturday. And I was like, cool, where? And he goes, it's on the north side. It's very bougie. I need you to wear your best suit. And that's when, like, this was quite literally after I had checked my bank account, like within 20 minutes. And I'm a small town Southern boy. I didn't even own a suit. I owned like a blazer that you put over like your Sunday khakis. That was about it. And I remember like gulping and being, so my grandmother Venmo'd me $150, went to H&M, bought a H&M suit, bank account's now at like $30. And I just being like, calling my grandmother and being like, I promise I'll pay you back. I have work this weekend, I promise. Paid her back, and then started working for Eric editing. That lasted a couple months, and then went on my own. And then that was kind of a similar position of like, got to make this work, you know, got to make it happen. And that's when I started freelancing full time. And that's when I started building my own business. Okay. And so at that time I had just turned 21 because I moved here in 21 June. So I hadn't quite turned 21 yet. I was 20. By the time I had started freelancing and building my own business later that year, like October, November of that year, I was just now 21.
Gene, as the senior elder of this current board of people assembled right now.
Yeah, I know.
And
I know. It's like my nap time right now. I'm kind of tired.
I was going to check in, make sure you're still awake. I was going to say, after hearing Braxton say all that, because I got sweaty and nervous when he said certain things.
Yes.
Would you recommend that route to other people? I know I had just said, a couple minutes ago, if you're that young, take the risk, why not? And I think in your case, absolutely pay it off.
Absolutely.
And you're a very special person who has the wherewithal to go through moments like that and not lose your head entirely. But with those circumstances in mind, would you recommend that course of action to younger photographers?
Yeah, I have the hardest time saying like yes confidently, only because if I look at my own journey, it also had a lot of like bumps along the way. But like the thing that I didn't understand when I was Braxton's age, which like Braxton, when we talk about Braxton in this regard, when we look at you, I don't see you as a 23-year-old. I just see you as Braxton, our friend, the guy who works really hard and has a business. And is a troll.
And is not 23.
And is not 23.
He's not 23.
Like, what is happening right now? But I think like the thing that I didn't understand then was what were the objectives that I needed to address in order to go full time or to pursue this. Like I wasn't budgeting then, so I had no idea. Okay, every month, how much money do I actually need to make so that I can continue this lifestyle? These are just things I wasn't thinking about. I would say it just depends on your circumstances. And when I say that, I mean, like, if you have someone depending on you, like you're married. Yeah. It's tough.
Entirely different conversation.
Different
and I actually had the complete opposite stance when it comes to that.
Yeah.
What I did personally.
For sure. I think like you have to look at your situation and then also like look at the people in your life. And even for Braxton to make that jump also meant your parents were okay. They were, I'm sure, had a gamut of emotions, but they ultimately sent you off. So that tells me, got it, your parents at the end of the day trusted you enough that there's something there that he can at least, will let him go.
Yep.
If you don't have people in your life who see that in you, it's hard. I feel like trying to do it on your own, by yourself, in my opinion, is really hard.
Yeah.
So for me, although my community didn't necessarily understand, Lois understood. My wife understood. She saw something in me that even though we both agreed financially it would be incredibly difficult at first, she essentially told me, like, give it a shot. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out, but give yourself at least the opportunity to go after it.
Yeah.
I think everyone's circumstance is different. If you have a ton of debt, I would actually tell you, go do it, but go pick up a part-time job. Go work at your grocery store. I don't care.
Yeah.
Do something so you're making some money and not just chasing this dream, this possible idea while you're just incurring all this debt. So like, I think ultimately it comes down to a bit of your circumstance and self-awareness of where you're at and who you are. But do I think that in the modern day, like today, do most people have the opportunity to at least try something in conjunction while they're doing something else like school or work? Yeah, I think so. Like I think anyone can carve out an hour a day to build a free website or to take photos on your phone and use a free editing app, right? Like you have the opportunity to try stuff. So I would say like, yes, I would encourage young creatives to go out and try to do it. But be responsible.
Yeah.
Like I was a very irresponsible creative at first. And so like there are regrets that I have. But be responsible within reason. Be a little reckless. Like give yourself the opportunity to try things and make mistakes. But like don't be irresponsible and say, well, I'm going to be this artist and you don't have a camera, you don't have a paintbrush, you've never painted before. I'm like, oh, that's a little silly to me then.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between like being like higher risk tolerance versus like irresponsible and risky.
Yeah.
Because you can totally assume some risk while also going about it in a responsible way. Like risk isn't inherently bad.
No, I agree.
But irresponsibility absolutely is.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm also speaking as like someone who is 34 now. And in some ways I feel this is like my insecurity. I kind of feel like I'm on the other side of like Braxton. I feel like I'm entering not like the twilight of my career. It's like another whole nother episode.
We're sunsetting Gene. What's happening?
Gene's existential crisis.
But you know, like I feel as though more so than ever, I don't know creatively what my future holds. And I feel so much more risk adverse now than I did 10 years ago. And so like my filter of how I make decisions is a little different now. But I think like young people in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, like give yourself the opportunity to try it out. Yeah.
Yes, that is a good point of clarification too, because I'm going to let Cyrus change the battery in the R5C. I was going to try to really smoothly go through that, but instead...
Thanks, Cyrus.
Cyrus is so
strong. And good looking.
Look at the way...
Look how easily he popped that battery door open.
It takes me 2 hands to get the
By the way,
battery
he's doing a handstand right now. You can't actually see him, but he's doing it with his feet.
He just changed
that's
the
how strong
battery
he
in
is.
the R5C with his feet.
He did, yes.
Dang,
Wow.
dude.
Dang.
That's
a different
serious. That's some serious bodybuilding energy right there. Interesting. I was saying something. I can't remember what it was.
But the answer,
yes. In last week's episode, we had kind of talked about a wide variety of age ranges, but primarily kind of past college years, which is why our demographic for this episode was a little bit younger and what kind of tolerances you could have as a younger person. Eric and I were in full agreement in what you guys kind of echoed too, is like if there is any dependence involved, if there's a spouse involved, a partner of any kind, be a lot more careful there and be on the same page with them and make sure that you are not ruining like a lot of lives in the process. Cause it's just not worth it. I don't think to kind of take something like that on and then fail at it. And then it's like catastrophic.
Yes.
But for our kind of like character that we've built here, the younger person who does not have any of those things, I think it's a good thing to try.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think you would regret not trying later on.
Oh, for sure.
I think that's the biggest thing, which is kind of just calling back to what I had said earlier is like, you won't have the same opportunities you have now as you will 10 years from now. because life is going to be very different.
Yeah.
And I think if you have any inkling as to whether or not the lifestyle is right for you, the only way to know is just to start taking action.
Yeah. And I think kind of harkening back to Gary Vee a little bit, Gary Vee's whole message was always, you always have so much more time than what you think. He would be like, you can literally screw up your entire 20s and you then have your 30s to figure it all out.
Yeah.
Like you have all of this time. So understanding that, like, if you're young, like take the risk. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. You still have plenty of time to figure something else out.
Yep. Last question to kind of close things out and explore a little bit. Let's ruminate. I know we said we'd talk about maybe where we're at with business going forward. Might truncate that for a later episode, actually, because what I'd love to answer now and just kind of hear your guys' unfiltered opinions on is, as feels like another softball, actually, but whether or not college or education of any kind should be encouraged if you know from an early age that art is going to be the thing for you.
I would say, again, if you can do it without incurring massive amounts of debt, sure. I don't necessarily think that it's a good idea to push particularly education with the field in mind. Like if someone who wants to be a photographer, I would not push them to go get a photography degree. Right. I find that to be quite ludicrous, to be honest with you.
I hear that. Yes, I agree with you fully on that.
I mean, like, as someone who adores film and shoots a ton of film, I find it quite ludicrous that photography classes are still doing things in the darkroom. Like that's not beneficial at all to the current state of photography at all, truthfully. I mean, like it romanticizes it as a medium maybe a bit, but that doesn't help you make dollars with your camera.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, it also doesn't hurt to, you know, go and get an associate's degree in anything. And you have that. You learn a thing or two along the way. Like, I actually think it'd be quite beneficial if you wanted to, like, be a photographer, creative entrepreneur, or whatever, and you go get a degree in, like, economics or something.
Yeah.
Like, you know, business administration, whatever. I mean,
Totally.
like, there's at least a few classes here and there that would be beneficial for your, you know, your life as a creative.
You could learn some of those core business principles that maybe not every photographer who considers themselves an educator is particularly savvy in, because I think there's some education from, I mean, there's a lot of education from photographers on the business side of things. I feel like it more so generally leans towards like creativity, but yeah, having those very fundamental skills and that knowledge would be a really great complement to all the creativity that you already have.
And bare minimum, you learn people skills more than anything at college.
Yep.
You learn how to interact with people. You learn how to build relationships. You learn how to talk to people older than you, your professors and those kind of people. And at bare minimum, you at least get those connections and those life experiences that would help you in your business later on.
100%. Yeah. I think How about you, Gene?
Yeah, I'm like, with 95% confidence, I say, no, if you know you want to go into a creative field, I don't believe you have to go to college.
No.
But like the reason why I say like 95% is because 10 years from now, when my eldest is entering the age where she can go to college, I do wonder, will I be super thrilled that she tells me, hey, I want to give this a try, Dad. Like, I don't want to go to college. So now I'm like, yeah, no, you don't need to go to college. But I do wonder, like, as a parent too, would I feel differently 10 years from now when my own child?
Yeah, that's hard.
You know what I mean? So like,
perspective.
I'm being very objective about it too. And that like, my answer is no, you don't need college. But I don't know how I'll feel when it affects my own life.
Yep.
Yeah.
When I'm basically revisiting college again through my children.
Yep.
But like, to do what we do, you don't need college.
No,
That's
not
my
at
like
all.
ultimate.
You
like,
definitely don't
college.
need it.
Yeah.
Not a requirement. Nice if you don't incur debt,
Yes.
but definitely not a requirement by any means.
I don't think so. Yeah.
No. And look at Cyrus.
Crushing
He
it.
didn't need it. Look how strong he is.
His biceps.
I really, really wish he was on.
Cyrus loves this. He loves attention, guys.
If you want to get strong like Cyrus, don't go to college.
The end montage of this podcast is just Cyrus flexing on camera.
That's it.
Please.
It's all the screenshots of his close friend stories that I've been taking.
Oh, guys, we can't tell them about the guys.
I'll censor all of that out. Don't worry. Awesome. I feel like that's a nice closing point for this episode. If you've made it to the very end of the episode, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you listening, being here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, however you consume Rally Caps. While you are still here, would love if you took the time to either subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment down below. giving us a little bit of context as to what your upbringing with your creative career was like, and if you went through any of the same, triumphs or failures that we did. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts right now, just really quick swipe up, just give us a quick little 5-star review. Really helps push out the show to more and more people who could benefit from conversations like this. Thank you all for being here. And actually, one last thing, if you happen to fall in the demographic that we were kind of speaking to today, please let us know, because we would love to just know, I think, a little bit more about the audience that we are speaking to. If this was really relevant for you, if this helped you kind of break through a couple of doubts that you're maybe having right now, or if you were on the precipice of a certain decision to do this exact thing that we've been talking about, please let us know, because we would love to hear stories like that.
And feel free to just leave a comment, DM me, whatever. Always happy to talk. 17-year-old Braxton would have killed to talk to someone like me now. Yep. Just, it's very hard to find people in the industry that are relatively close to the position that they're in. Yep. Everyone who you seek advice are 10, 15 years out from that, and they're,
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you all for being here.
Awesome.
See you in the next one.
Bye.